Hello, everyone. So nice to see some faces. So nice to see some squares with names on them. Those are cool too. Thanks for joining me today. This is Coaches Connect. So just a reminder, these are our weekly coaching calls for students, for grads. We record these, we upload them later to PN's YouTube channel so everyone can watch, but not everyone can attend. You see the catch there, but you can. So it's lovely to see you all. And today, I posted that earlier in the Facebook group. We're running this as a Q&A, as a hot coaching session. I am all yours. My brain, my heart, my body, to the extent that I can, is all yours for the next hour. So use the chat, unmute. Where do you want to go today? What's on your mind? What are you troubleshooting? What are you solving for? What are you working on? Vicky, go for it.
Thanks. I was hoping someone else would volunteer first, but here I go.
I was going to say, well, somebody had to break the awkward silence. So I think we're all inside so grateful for you right
Yeah.
now.
So I have a client that we're trying to address cravings, and she, it's definitely work. It's at work where there's that that infamous bowl of chocolate goodies in the break room. And so we're trying to, we're playing a little bit with the break the chain to see like what causes her, because sometimes she avoids them, but sometimes just, it's just a magnet and she can't. And so, we're addressing a little bit, going backwards, like what's the days where she can, avoid it, and what she isn't. But just looking for other people's ideas. About how to break those cravings. And she also has gut issues, and it's chocolate and it bothers her gut. So she's drawn to it even though it's bad for her. So I mean, so many reasons to avoid it. So
Yeah, well, I mean, right off the bat, I heard you immediately starting to work on what is the difference? What is the difference if you're like, if I'm able to succeed sometimes, but not other times, I really want to know what is different between those two instances. So if the client is able to stay away from chocolate sometimes, but not other times, really exploring the difference between those two sets of circumstances can be really helpful and shed some light in terms of kind of like what's working, what's not working. So like right off the bat, that is a solid like path of exploration right there. But I do want to throw it out to the group. So what suggestions do you have for Vicky, for Vicky's client? Where would you take this? Where would you go? What would you want to know? How do we approach this?
along those lines, she did have one day during the holidays where she ate two pieces and then kept going, and that was satisfying, and and that was just like a high five, great job kind of
Mhm.
moment. But just still really struggling with it.
Simona, go ahead. Did I say your name right?
Yeah, that's
Very good.
correct. Hello. So this sounds like someone I coached as well. Well, just similar, I guess, behaviors. Um, so how I went with, so she has like binge of episodes where she's like, well, sometimes I just can't stop eating. So we kind of went into what it means, the food she eats. Um, and we kind of discovered that it was coming from scarcity, where like she grew up not having certain foods around her. So, we explored how was that, and is she allowing herself to eat everything or anything, and what is her behavior toward like the how she sees food. And it felt like, she had so many limiting beliefs or some beliefs about food that, chocolate is bad. Like in general, oh, chocolate is like, or, if you chocolate is like, the belief was that chocolate is like a cheat meal or something, you cheat. And so we kind of went into foods that she eats or binge eats, and then what are the words associated, positive and negatives. So we discovered some specific foods to her that they meant comfort or home or her dad. We went into like what it meant about her dad. And so I think that's the approach I do. And I had another one as well, like similar, where she would like just crave some specific, like ice cream. And I'm like, well, what does it mean to you? And she's like, oh, again, when I was little, my dad would take me out for ice cream. So do you need ice cream or is something else you're craving? So I kind of, maybe because I had the counseling training as well, so I do approach everything through like, what does it mean to you? Is there anything you can do to change that? How can you change the way you see specific food? So is it, if you think, oh, it's bad for me, so you'll probably crave more. So how do you change the relationship where it's just food? Food is food, doesn't matter, like, um, and it's like constant conversation about that specific, like chocolate, let's say, what it means to her. um and then, yeah, kind of just
Yeah,
talking about it
absolutely.
more.
Simona, I love the deep dive. And I
Mm,
think most of the situations that clients bring to us, we can approach by going more micro or more
mm,
macro, right? Like we kind of start over here and we can always gain more understanding by either zooming in or zooming out.
mm,
Right? Like both of those can be super helpful. Like, so we can use one or the other, we can use both, where sometimes we like, in terms of like what is happening in the moment of overeating, we can zoom in and we can say like, but what is happening?
mm.
Well, I just like eat chocolate at work. It's like, no, no, but what is actually happening? Like, walk me through it. Like, give me details. Like, what time is it? It's 2:15. And
Yes.
what's happening, right? Like, is there like a bell? Is there a short
Yeah.
break between meetings? Like, do you need to pee and you get up and you walk down the hall and you pass the bowl and then you see the chocolate? And then we can get at what is actually happening, because sometimes it's just like, well, I only have 10 minutes. I don't have time to actually have lunch, but I do have time to grab a chocolate. And it could be very simple logistic thing like that. Or we could also go deep and we can kind of say like, well, what does this mean to you? Like, what does ice cream mean to you? Ice cream means absolutely nothing to me personally. Like, I have absolutely no emotional attachment to ice cream or chocolate. But pancakes, like
Mm,
cookies, bread, right? Like that to me, like this is sort of what I grew up eating. That means grandma. That means like all the things, right? So kind of like getting at like, what's your story about this
mm,
thing? Like what is happening for you when you eat and not eat certain foods? And Simone, I also really appreciated like your focus there. Like, how do we undemonize foods?
mm,
Food is food, which is kind of a call, right? Like this is the cry, the battle cry of intuitive eating movement. Uh, I do want to call this out though, especially based on something Vicky said. Food is food approach in many ways is an incredibly privileged stance,
yes.
which I can take. Like, so I can tolerate anything. I don't have any allergies. I don't have any intolerances. I can eat and love gluten, dairy, you take it, like, right? You name it. But then we sometimes get into circumstances where I'm allergic to a thing, I'm intolerant to a thing, I have celiac disease, my gut really hates this particular thing. And then not all food is food, because certain foods are indeed actually kind of evil because they do evil things to my body specifically, right? And then that can actually bring that extra layer of complexity, because it's like, well, yeah, food is food, but this particular food is actually specifically evil to me individually. Wah, wah.
I agree with you. Like, I think that's like very specific to people, but I think the mindset most of the time is still like we demonize certain products. And, of course, if you're allergic to something, I have many friends who are allergic to peanuts. To them, peanuts or nuts are the killer, or they are terrified. And you're not gonna go, oh, but why? Why do you think you're afraid of, well, they can kill me? But I think when it comes to like probably what I'm saying, I would just suggest also sometimes exploring the emotional side of the attachment. Um, that it sometimes can bring you more, or help you see a different side of the story.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? I know Ashley has a question. We'll switch gears in a little bit, but I want to make sure that are there any folks there who had suggestions for this, like addressing cravings for Vicky and her
Oh,
client?
I was gonna say, I used to think I had a big problem with emotional eating. And then when I started eating a lot of protein and getting enough sleep, it magically got a lot easier. And so there totally is the emotional side, but sometimes I feel like if you solve some physical things, it can just make it a lot easier.
Yeah, what a great observation. Yeah, like so what sometimes cravings can be actually alleviated quite a bit by moving other levers in the equation. And Ashley, what you're describing and referencing, probably one of the most what's the word I'm looking for, like radical examples that comes up a lot is sugar and carb cravings for women. In a week before their menstrual cycle, right? Like that is a very common scenario that comes up, very common complaint, right? Like literally just like walking around hunting for carbs. And as a treatment, if you will, if we actually look and map out the anticipated dates of those increased carb cravings and actually help the client very strategically implement a higher protein intake before noon on those days, and like the smart carbs, like a higher smart carb intake on those days, the carb cravings also magically disappear. All right, so there is that like magical effect to it that is pretty freaking cool. That's where you get to claim the magician status as a coach. It's beautiful. Christina says it's sometimes about adding more good food to their daily eating routine to have less space for items that are holding them back to reach their goals. Yeah, so kind of like thinking about it, how can we add rather than subtract? Like, what are we adding? Um,
Uh,
Yvonne, go ahead. Your hand's up. Did you have a suggestion for Vicky?
Yeah, thank you. It's actually, I was going to say what Christina said, because I think with a lot of cravings, I'll just turn my video on really quick. A lot of it is because our body's still hungry, but if you eat the right foods, like whole foods, obviously you're fuller for longer, which means you're less likely to crave. So it's also just asking them what they're eating, because maybe they're not getting enough nutrients. And if you're not getting enough nutrients, of course, your body is going to have cravings. So it's also just looking at their diet as well. But I was going to ask, I think you said high carbs. So what foods, I think you said high carbs as well.
I said smart carbs, right? So
Smart
sort of
carbs,
like
sorry.
more of the like a whole unprocessed carb. So if we think of
Okay.
like what would be my champion breakfast if
Mm-hmm.
I was in the week before a menstrual cycle trying to manage carb cravings, and I'm thinking of like
Okay.
a breakfast, snack, lunch, I'm probably thinking of like egg omelet with vegetables and sweet potatoes. And the sweet
Yeah.
potatoes would actually be part of like the magic makeup of that meal that would
Okay.
really eat like in conjunction with a higher protein content.
Okay. Thank you.
so Kate, these were great.
Mhm.
And it's just really it iterates in my head how complex our clients are, because I mean my client has all of those things. She's perimenopausal, she's not sleeping well. She's got night sweats. We're trying to encourage her to get her doctor to help her with that. Yeah, and then she's trying IF. I mean, there's just so many factors. So yeah, yeah.
Well, and I think Simona was referring to kind of like the notion of um, moving towards unrestricted eating. There is an exercise I have folks do sometimes. We probably wouldn't do it in the work setting for obvious reasons, but I'll share what the exercise is. And for someone who struggles with overeating or binging or any particular food that feels like I cannot eat this food in moderation, having a very intentional sit down exercise to eat that food until you're satisfied can be both really scary and really illuminating. So I'm thinking of a client who had this particular relationship with like the chocolate cupcakes. It was a particular chocolate cupcake they would purchase, and it would just be like, she literally described, she's like, I can't stop eating them. Like I can't, like I can't have enough. And when I challenged her on that and we kind of discussed that exercise, so the exercise was to get a box of those chocolate cupcakes. Now, the trick here, the requirement is that what you take and put in front of yourself has to be more than a serving. It has to be way more than you would eat, like by default, right? So it's like if you think like, oh, but I couldn't stop eating those. I could eat 4. Fantastic. So put 14 in front of you. Like put more than you know you can possibly eat, knowing that there will be some left over. And then the point is, and again, like another caveat, I would say that's not a meal. It's not like I haven't eaten for 7 hours and now I'm going to sit in front of 14 chocolate cupcakes, right? Like we're good with that. It's more like, no, I've had a lunch, dinner's coming. It's now 2 o'clock and I'm feeling kind of just snack, right? Like that feeling. And then it's the chocolate cupcake that is my nemesis and I just can't stop eating them. What I can't stop eating them usually means is that I kind of want one, but I feel like I shouldn't have one. So I stand in front of my pantry and I eat one anyway. And then I feel bad for eating one. So I eat one more and maybe another one. Like that's what that actually means. It very rarely means like I sat down and I like actually ate 4 boxes. Right? So the exercise, then we kind of sit down and we acknowledge the goddamn cupcakes in front of me. Like, so it's not this like secret, I'm pretending I'm not eating them. Right? But I'm actually going to eat them. And then we see how many is enough. It's really scary. That particular woman stopped at 2.5. And her mind was freaking blown because she truly expected herself to eat 12. But she ate 2.5 and she's like, I'm good. Like I don't want more. Like I actually don't want any more. I'm like good. That, like to actually get to the other side of that, like to kind of realize what that number is, allows you to just like show to yourself that it's like, no, like you're not an uncontrollable beast when it comes to chocolate cupcakes where you like truly will just eat them until you pass out. And that's one of the things that can sort of start for us to develop that relationship is like, yes, I can have it if I want, and I will eventually stop. My body will eventually stop on its own. It's magical like that. Thanks for asking that question, Vicky. That was such a good one. Ashley, let's jump over to you. You had a question.
Okay, thanks for sharing that exercise. That's really awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. So I apologize. This is a client I've kind of been posting about on the Facebook group. So I just wanted to just quick get some clarity. It's a client I have that she's probably got 75 pounds or so to lose. that she would like to lose. And we've been really slowly working on nutrition. There was one day, there were 3 days that I was able to convince her to send me a photo food journal. And according to that, she was only around 1,400 calories a day, which seems really low. She's 207 pounds. And she's not currently exercising on a regular basis. And at our last session, we talked about maybe starting strength training, and she was interested in that. And now I'm feeling kind of nervous about it. And as I was thinking about why I'm feeling nervous, I realized I guess I'm worried that by starting something new, she's going to get distracted from making nutrition changes. And she has not made any progress yet with nutrition. What I mean is she's made behavioral changes, but she hasn't lost any weight yet. So I guess what my question is would you start adding in something new like exercise, or would you really nail down nutrition first before you added in something new in this situation?
That's a fantastic question. I would love to hear from folks in the group. I mean, one thing I would say right off the bat, if we all waited to nail our nutrition down before we started exercising, none of us would be exercising. I mean, maybe I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I wouldn't be exercising. Anyone else would not be exercising if you were waiting? Yeah, so we see. So there is that, I think, Ashley, right? Like the piece is like, there is no such thing as nailing her nutrition. Like, what does that mean? Like, what would you need to see as her coach to say, you got this, girl, you deserved yourself some strength training. We can add that in now because you are officially nailing your nutrition, right? Like, it's all going to be very much a back and forth process. And there's going to be one step forward, 2 steps back, because that's sort of how humans work. Cecil, your hand's up. Go ahead. And then we have Teresa and Vicky.
Kate, I think I agree with you. So I had a similar client, and we were working on nutrition, and it really wasn't working out for us. And then I decided to start a little bit of simple exercises. I think it's about increasing the client's self-efficacy and self-confidence. What we started to do was every day we met, instead of having like long 1-hour sessions about nutrition and me trying to tell them what's healthy, what's not nutritionally good for their goals. We just met every day for 15 minutes and we just moved our body. With time, what happened was that they started to gain a lot of confidence. They started to see a lot of positive things that they can do with their body that they never thought that they could. So when they started getting more self-confidence in that area, then they approached me and started asking me questions. Okay, so what can I do when it comes to nutrition? So they approached me. So I think it would be a great idea if that's something that can increase their self-efficacy. That would be great.
That's a beautiful approach, Cecil. And I think like I'll add to that a little bit after folks weigh in, because you're really getting, I think, at the core piece here. The core piece being, how do we help this person change and alter her identity closer to the identity that she's actually shooting for, the identity of the person that she wants to become. All right, so like we're really frying bigger fish here than whether or not like she's doing bicep curls or not doing bicep curls. Yeah, I love that. Teresa, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I'm also a personal trainer, and the first thing I heard you mention was that she weighs around 200 pounds.
275, I think. Yeah.
I work with clients as well in that weight category, and it little things like maybe the cheat sheet that we have on how you can just sneak exercise into your day would be something that would be easy for her to start. Like maybe park a couple of stalls farther when she goes to the grocery store, and then she's getting a few extra steps in a day. So how much is she actually, have you had that conversation? How much is she moving throughout the day? Because a lot of times we find that our clients aren't moving. And so when we're working with their nutrition goals, they're not maybe moving as fast or as what they would like to see. But sometimes if we can just set little tiny baby baby steps of 100 steps more, or just use our little cheat sheet we have on different ways to get additional exercise into your day that doesn't feel like exercise, that organically the number on the scale that they're looking for will start to move. And then like I think it was Simone or Cecil, sorry if I said your name wrong, they will then again come to you, like she mentioned, and say, hey, what now can I do to add to what I'm doing? Because I just noticed, oh, I dropped a pound this week, or a half a pound, or whatever it may be. And now they're really going to be a little more engaged possibly, and come to you and asking for additional ideas on how now you can tweak that nutritional piece to help keep that momentum going.
Thank you, Teresa. Vicky, go ahead.
Yeah, so just adding on to what everyone else has said, I mean, to me, weight training is, I have my bias there because, it just sort of represents an empowering thing, so if you're struggling with control in your life, I mean, it just makes you feel physically more able to do that. But I mean, we have to know a little bit more about the person and what their history was. When we talk about adding small movements, like Teresa mentioned, sometimes, if they were former athletes and I talk about like, yeah, just moving, yeah, they're like, why bother kind of thing. I know I'm not moving now, but in the past I've moved a lot. So considering who that person was in their past is super important. And yeah, and also how ready, willing, and able they are to take on this kind of thing. So it's a great suggestion. What was their response? And where would you start? And are they confident that that's an avenue they want to pursue?
Yeah, and Ashley, notice that we also kind of zoom out here because on one hand, and I think like if I remember from the community, the client is around 275 right now, and she wants to be around 200.
No, so okay, so she's around 207, and that was an estimate. I was trying to think. So she's got, over 50 pounds to lose. I'll just say
Gotcha.
that. So yeah. Yeah.
So it's somebody who wants to pursue relatively large amount of weight loss, and it's also somebody who is sedentary, like who's moving as their life requires them to, but there is no intentional exercise, there's no training. You as a coach coming into this, you ask yourself a question, I wonder if strength training can be helpful. And I think that is a solid question. But then eventually we kind of zoom out and it's like, well, is this person moving intentionally, regularly? Is exercise part of this person's life? And in terms of like waiting for nutrition to be sorted out versus not, I would argue that for most people, nutrition and movement, they do kind of live in a separate brain buckets, like where it really kind of feels like folks usually do struggle with one more so than the other. So to be able to work on two things that use two different parts of the brain, so to speak, right? Like it actually can be quite helpful because if one is not going well, I can actually see success in the other thing as well. And what I was alluding to earlier, as Cecil was talking as well, it's if we compare this person, like we can call this person Lori, right? Like Lori as a 207. She's 207 pounds, and Lori wants to be 150 pounds, let's say, 140 pounds. If we were to imagine those two Loris side by side, they're actually living a pretty different lifestyle. They do. Right? Like, so if you think of yourself, if your weight has naturally fluctuated throughout your life, and especially if you're a woman, this would be true, right? But most human bodies fluctuate in weight. Like you were 6 to 10 pounds at some point to begin with, right? And here we are. So if I think of my body, a 200-pound Kate looks and lives differently than 140-pound Kate. Like we do different things. Our days look different. So then if I'm trying to move from one to the other, we can look at, well, what do you think 150-pound Lori is doing? Because that Lori is probably eating differently and is moving differently, right? And we can just start slowly closing that gap. And it doesn't have to be through like, here's a 5 days a week strength training, upper body and lower body split, right? But it might be, well, how do we go about making exercise a habit? What I really love as an approach for making exercise a habit for somebody who is not currently exercising is to do a 30-day challenge where they exercise every single day for 30 days for 5 minutes every day. 30 days, 5 minutes. And it can be anything you choose, right? Like you can sign up for an Apple Fitness subscription. They do 2 months free demo, and they're going to be guided, light arms and weights, right? Like, which is a 5-minute thing. Because I would argue that my biggest concern with someone like that would actually be not throwing too much at them too soon and not having them injured. Not because injury is like the worst thing in the world, people get injured, but because for somebody who is just starting to exercise, it can just be especially discouraging. All right, like Vicky has given us some great input. Vicky is a competitive cyclist. I'm not as worried about Vicky getting injured because Vicky has been getting injured in her life, but all athletes have, right? And athletes figure out how to train and how to show up. But if I'm just building a habit of intentional movement and exercise, that could be such a discouraging thing, right? So how do I set you up for success? How do I make you feel like a freaking champ? And for somebody who has not been exercising to say, you know what? I just did 30 freaking days where I exercised every single day. That makes her feel like a champ.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate all your help. Those are really great ideas, and it's given me a new perspective and a more, I think, important perspective on her. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Mariana, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm eating at the same time, so
You're good.
I want to talk about a client that she weighs about 138 pounds. She has IBS, she's diagnosed with it. I am her trainer, which is great, so I can control her workout sessions and the intensity of it. She does the FODMAP. She follows it pretty religiously. And we've gone through certain exercise or certain foods that kind of irritate her more than ever. But she does sugar-free. She has an adverse towards sugar, wheat, gluten, dairy, but she likes to work out generally between 4 to 5 times a week. And she doesn't like to eat that much protein as well. We worked on that, first of all, because we were trying to, quote unquote, build a booty. But it was a little bit difficult for her stress level to also maintain the recovery time that it needs to put that amount of stress on her body. I guess my question, and then my other question that was kind of like the background of it. Sorry, I'm shaking while I'm talking. I'm a little bit nervous. This is my first call. She's also doing fasting on top of it, out of all of this. And she, quote unquote, likes to be like Jennifer Aniston. This is a big hot topic that we talk about often. You have to understand that she poops. We also track that. Sorry, TMI, but it's really important. I'm tracking her pooping schedule. There was a point where she only poops every 3 days. And I came to the realization when she came or where she went on vacation, when she allowed herself to relax more and allowed herself to eat more, she became more regular with eating. And so we pointed this out, that when she had no restrictions to or allowed herself to fully relax and eat quote unquote more food, she was pooping more. But
So hold on, and let's bring this to, and
sorry,
where I'm stuck is,
I am stuck specifically on her wanting to do fasting on top of her goal to gain muscle.
and is her goal to gain muscle?
That is what she says. She wants to look quote unquote more fit.
Yeah, because I didn't really get the reference of Jennifer Aniston. I mean, because it just could mean so many things when somebody says that, right? Like if,
Yeah.
so what does that mean for her?
Sorry,
No,
I'm
no,
shaking a little bit.
you are doing so well.
So we do a lot of simple, or I do kind of like the double reflection. You want this, but you need to do that.
Hmm.
She does she does fasting when we go over the amount of food that she's taking in about 1,000 calories on her FODMAP that she wants to follow. But she also wants to be fit, quote unquote, like Jennifer Aniston.
Meaning, again, what? Like trim, muscular arms, blonde.
She doesn't want to look quote unquote thick. She doesn't
Okay,
want to look too muscular,
gotcha. Yeah.
but she wants to look like Jennifer Aniston.
So
And
it's let's go with it's a sort of lean, conventional beauty, Hollywood kind of like long fit physique, right? Like this is what
right.
used to be sold as long, lean muscles. Or
Yes, she wants to look quote unquote again toned as Jennifer Aniston.
gotcha. All
Um,
right. And can you give us an idea? How tall is she? Because you said she's 138.
she's 138. She's about 5'8". So she is not big at all. But she is very animate about losing these 8 pounds. In
So
my
she wants
opinion,
to be 130. Is that correct?
yeah, yes, exactly.
So she's on the low end of what, BMI, however antiquated, would put her in. Uh, I like
Yeah,
using BMI sometimes because BMI gives us such a wide range of what normal weight is. If you look at the BMI window, it's about 40 pounds, right? And even by those metrics, she's on the lighter, leaner end already for her
right.
height, right? Like, and you notice that it is helpful to have a relative size of someone when we're talking about their weight. In the online fitness, nutrition, body recomp communities, it is very common to say, I have a client and she weighs 138 pounds and she wants to be 130. Great. Is she 6'2" or is she 4'11"? Right? Because that changes the picture for us quite a bit. And as soon as we found out from you, Mariana, that the client is 5'8", I think most people kind of got a relative picture,
Right.
right, of the client. They're like, okay, cool. So we have somebody who is actually relatively lean already. Now, When you say fasting, are we talking about a structured intermittent fasting protocol? Or is she somebody who skips meals? Or this is religious fasting? Like, what do we mean by fasting?
So that's really kind of where I'm struggling with her. Her doctor, because she's been to a gastroenterologist and been through multiple studies, had suggested she done fasting. And
Like, what
it's
kind of fasting though?
so she's missing her morning meal.
Gotcha. So she doesn't eat until lunchtime.
Yes, and sometime between 12 and 2. And then she stops eating anytime between, I would say, 7, anytime between 6 to 8. So it's a very short window
Hmm.
for her and her goals. The thing I'm also struggling with is, again, I need to follow along with what the doctor recommended, but I always ask her, do you let your doctor know how often you're working out? And
Hmm.
is that a part of it? Because a lot of her words contradict. We have two different goals happening at the same time. So what I'm struggling with, and really quickly, someone asked how old she was. She's 32.
Hmm.
Um, she lives by herself. She works in a high-end, pretty business. She works for Estee Lauder. So she has that look that she's looking for, or that mentality that that's the way she should look.
And Mariana, just to clarify kind of like roles here for
Yeah.
us, you
Yes.
did mention that you are her personal trainer.
Yes.
Are you also her nutrition coach? Like, who is she to you? Is she your personal training client or is she your health coaching client? Both?
She's my new nutrition coach and she is my client. We do both.
So she's both your personal training client and also your health coaching client.
Yes, exactly. And
So
so I just
you're doing
noticed
her
some
movement
trends.
and you're doing her nutrition. Like you are responsible for both of those pieces.
Yes, exactly.
And you already mentioned yourself that like you as her coach are perceiving conflicting goals there. What are the conflicting goals that she has?
Um, I guess she wants to build glutes, but she doesn't feel like she has big glutes, but I can't make her legs bigger. And
But you
she,
can't make her anything really.
yeah, exactly. It's based on her genetics. Is But she would like to have a more fit body, but she struggles with getting enough protein or enough food to support that process of with recovery towards the amount of weight she would need to try to progress with to get the goal or the look that she would like.
Okay, so let's pause here and I would love to hear from the group. Where is your mind going? What do you want to do here? What would you recommend to Mariana? Abdul was saying that's an interesting case. Shelley, go ahead.
I don't have a perfect solution for sure, but I am in a similar situation with training and doing nutrition with clients as well. And it just sounds like she has a lot of um, mental, not in a bad way, like, but that she has mindset and perceptions of herself, like where someone might come and they want to be a completely different shape than they are. Like we all have body types and you can make that body that's smaller or bigger, but you're not going to change your body type. And so she might be in that situation where she's trying to say, I want to look like this. I want to look over here like Jennifer Aniston, but and this is my body type. She doesn't have maybe the glutes that she wants, but I would just be helping her break that down a little bit into why she really wants to be smaller, or why she feels like what does she feel like that would do for her, and helping her picture that a little bit, because sometimes breaking that down multiple times, it's just like, well, why are we going there? Like Kate says, if you kind of break down those whys again and again, she may come to the realization like, oh, you know what? I thought I wanted big glutes because my ex-boyfriend liked them, or whatever it is. But for her to realize that and be like, oh, you know what? No, this is really, I love who I am. And though we can't all have exactly what we want,
Shelley, what I really
I
love
think that it could
about your
maybe help her
suggestion
open her eyes a little bit.
what I really love about your suggestion is that you're really suggesting that we start by helping the client sort through this. This is a big freaking mess, honestly, like what I've heard in this particular case, right? And we will often find ourselves in the receiving position of the mess, where it's sort of like the client goes, "Here you go." Right? I have IBS. I cannot have wheat or gluten or vegetables or beans or anything that starts with the letter B, but I also want to lose weight but gain weight, shrink my butt and grow my butt at the same time. And you're like, "Okay, so let's take a beat. Let's start at the beginning," right? Like, let's start separating out the laundry, right? So Shelley, I really like that kind of like that direction that you're suggesting. Like, can we identify, like, what are the goals? What are the stories? What are the expectations? What are the body types? Like, what out of all of this is doable, plausible, realistic? Like, what direction do we want to move?
Just to make it clear, we've had many, if I want to say like heart to heart conversations that this is your genetics. I can do like, this is what we can work on.
Mhm.
If we need to do this, we need to do that. And
For
what
sure.
I'm willing and ready to do, we've done this multiple times. I guess where I'm stuck is I need other suggestions to make her understand, or not make her, have her understand these dual conflicting things happening. Her story per se is that I cannot get her past this concept of Jennifer Aniston. And I keep saying, you will never look like her. We can do as much as you want, but we're never going to look like that. And it's a hot mess where it really challenges me mentally, where she's like, how
Mhm.
come my glutes don't look like that? I'm like, well,
Well, and Mariana, and I would love really to hear from Keisha and then Ahmed, and then
okay,
we'll
sorry.
come back because, and again, I do say mess, right? But I say that kind of in a sense of that we all are, right? Because I take my mess and I hand it over to my coach. It's like, here, I want to do this and this, and it's like, well, which one would you like to do first, Kate? Right? Like, so there is that sense of being in our own head and in our own confusion and in our own stories. That's what coaches are for. Keisha, go ahead.
Yeah, I think and this is just based on what you said, Mariana. And it also speaks to what Shelley said too, to go a little bit deeper and have her talk a little bit more. Because based on what you said you had many conversations with her about her genetics. And she doesn't care about genetics. She does not care that she can't look like that. So it's understanding where, digging a little bit deeper. Okay, well, what is it about Jennifer Aniston that you like? What is it? Yeah, and really even going deeper than that, why her? Of all the people in the world, Jennifer Aniston is way older than her 32-year-old self. Why her? Why do you want to look like a 40-something plus woman and you're 32? And so, really, is it the Jennifer Aniston of the 90s, or is it the way she looks now? So really, really understanding why her, and understand, and not even going what she says is on the surface. She says, I want to do this. I want a lean. I want lean. I want this. But really understanding, really don't even acknowledge all the things that she says. Because at the same, we can bulk up. She can. Her genetics doesn't really matter necessarily. She can be. She can thicken up if she wants to. So just understanding, going a little bit deeper, just like Shelley said, and really understand, what is it that she actually wants, and narrowing it down and saying, okay, how about let's focus on this one thing right here, or asking her, if it makes sense to focus on that one, on a thing, and then go to the, some other places. So that's
Keisha, I really love this like notion of going deeper with the obsession, if you will, right? And I think as her coach, like we can totally just take it like, why Jennifer Aniston? I think your point about age is brilliant, right? Because this is where I really like when we start comparing, like, well, I want to look like my friend this or Jennifer Aniston, or I had a client who sent me like very specific CrossFit athlete that she wanted to look like, and I said, okay, let's take a look at this CrossFit athlete. Pull her up. How old is she? Does she also have 4 children like you do? No, she doesn't. Okay, well, let's write that down. Does Jennifer Aniston have IBS? I would like to know. And does Jennifer Aniston fast? And does she eat 1,000 calories? And like, is she also not able to eat wheat, sugar, gluten, and dairy? Because if we're going to make comparisons, then let's make comparisons. Let's make sure that we're making comparisons that are appropriate. What does Jennifer Aniston do for her training? You want to be like Jennifer Aniston? Okay, right? Like, let's really get specific then, right? And you notice that sometimes that actually can be helpful, like to kind of, because Mariana, I think all of us are so feeling for you, because it's like, oh, for the love of like everything, can we drop like the Jennifer Aniston already? But sometimes what's helpful is to do the opposite. It's like, fine, let's go. Let's go deep. Let's go on the Operation freaking Jennifer Aniston. Like let's do some digging and some research and see how much of it even applies, right? Like, because that can be a really helpful realization as well. Ahmed, go ahead.
Yes, that's such an interesting topic. I first would like to make sure that you can understand me. You can hear my voice if I am
Yeah, we can hear you.
audible.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I also agree with Keisha about what she said. That's really interesting. And I am interested in this case because I've got clients who have the same view always, all the time. They say, okay, I want to lose weight, but I'm afraid maybe if I lose weight, I won't look pretty, or I will lose some of the things or the traits of beauty that I have right now. So the first thing is to reassure them that they're going to look better. They're going to look themselves, but a better version of themselves. That's what I always remind them of. Like, you're not going to look like someone else, like a model or an actor or someone else. Just try to look for better version or best version of yourself, and try to take photos of yourself and try to compare the changes that happened, something like that.
Well, is it going to be a better version of you, or just a version of you with bigger butt? And is a version of you with bigger butt automatically a better version of you?
Yeah, maybe according to the person, which is quite different from someone to another. But what I find most of the time, that a lot of clients are confused when I first meet them. For example, they say, I want to lose weight. But when I start digging deeper and asking them, what weight do you want to be, or how much weight do you want to lose? They say, I don't know, maybe, okay, let's try and see. And I will then figure out what is the most appropriate weight for me. So for this purpose, particularly, I use the cost of getting lean chart suggested by the PN, which is very helpful in this case. I try to show them what a person, for example, at 20% body fat, how do they look like? Do you want to look like this person, which is not a real person, but it's just a chart? And they decide, if they say, yeah, I want to look like this, then I try to talk to them about the trade-offs and what they should do and what they shouldn't be doing to be at this body fat percentage, and whether it's possible or not in the first place.
Yeah, and
according to
Ahmed,
their
I think
situation.
to your point, and I think you're making a good one, is that very often we think we want a thing, but we very often don't know what getting that thing entails. And that's where
Yeah.
working with a coach and expert can be very helpful, right? Because then we can we can get a sense of what choices would we have to make. I think in this particular instance, every single trainer and coach here kind of winced when Mariana said, well, she wants to build her booty, but she also wants to go from 138 to 130. And you're like, that's not how that works, right? Like, so like there is no universe where both of those things, like you want to build a booty, fantastic, we can do that, right? Like squats till the cows come home, healthy fats, caloric surplus, amazing. Let's do that, right? But that's also not going to look like a woman who's 5'8" going from 138 to 130. That's going to result in less butt, not more butt. And they're directly conflicting goals to each other. But Mariana, I do want to bring it to you for a moment, because I think one thing that's really happening there for you specifically is that you are struggling, right? And I would argue that as frustrating as the situation can be, this is not actually your struggle. Like your role there as a coach is that of a supporter and an expert and an educator if need be. For example, saying, well, hey, on one hand, I know you said you want to drop some weight. On the other hand, you also said you really want to build up your glutes. As your coach and a personal trainer, I can tell you that those two goals go in two opposite directions. So what would you like to do first? No struggle. I don't care which way to go. Like, as your coach, I don't care if we work on fat loss or if we work on building up your butt. Like, it's your butt, up, down, like, but it is my role to tell you about the limitations of what we're trying to do. Right? And you notice how sometimes we enter these scenarios that clients build up, that we then are somehow feeling the pressure to solve. Not all of them are solvable. I had somebody who said, well, I'm vegan. I hate beans of all kinds, but I do want to hit 200 grams of protein per day. I said, congrats, that's not happening. Like, I'm not going to solve that for you.
Okay, so
Put yourself into a mutually exclusive set of circumstances. Go ahead.
So really quick, something that just popped in my head, because something that Tony Bauer, when I was working with her specifically, she's like, Mariana, you need to get over the fix-it syndrome.
That sounds like Tony.
Yeah, she was very, and you're just bringing to light again that this need to be the person that the coach that she wants me to be, my client. And it is my best and worst quality with her. And so a lot of I think I'm really gonna take Keisha and I'm sorry to point out, like, what is the jam with Jennifer Aniston, because a lot of the things we've kind of gone over already, but
Please report back. I'm dying to
yeah.
know.
So what made me think all of a sudden, again, what Keisha said, there was a point what I just thought of, like, what's the jam with Jennifer Aniston? She was dating a man, and she looked her best. She said, I look like Jennifer Aniston. They broke up. She was devastated. And so I just thought of it when Keisha, yeah, I just thought about it. And I'm like, oh crap. I missed that point, is that she said, I felt my best when I was then. And this was the man she thought she was gonna marry. And
Oof.
yeah.
Everybody felt that? Everybody felt the knife? Yeah, like "Arr, arr."
So yeah, there's a lot of things happening here that she's equating that she looked her best when she was dating this man, and that she wants to look that way no matter the cost.
Well, and how many of us do this? Like, this is such a human thing, and it is so understandable because we think of that moment in time when we either were happy or we thought we were, or that's how we remember it. And because we can bring back time, well, at least I'm gonna make my butt look like it did back then, which makes no sense, right? Like, but it sort of gives that sense of control, sort of. Right? It's like, well, at least I will weigh that many pounds, damn it. And you're like, okay, I guess, but it doesn't really work that way. And I think it can be very powerful to make that connection. So Mariana, I'm so glad this was helpful. Yeah, what Keisha was saying, it's not about Jennifer Aniston. There's something there. And Keisha, your coach vibey thing just went off, right? It's like, what is it? Like, I want to know, like, what is happening here? What's underneath it? Like, let's get curious. I love what we did here, team. This was awesome. Mariana, thank you so much for bringing this forward. And I really want to give you such a huge high five for speaking up, because I know it took some courage and you were nervous there, and you did so wonderfully. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it really helped a lot. Something very cliche, but coaches need coaches too, and just talking it out. But yeah, that all of a sudden, like, the spark hit me. I'm like, oh crap, that's
Yeah, well, I think this might be, and when we're often afraid to do that thing that's really uncomfortable, like, I'm going to show up to this coaching call and I'm going to bring like my coaching scenario, and it makes me feel so nervous, but then we do it anyway, and then something really cool comes out of it. And I know not only you learned something, but we all learned something. Like, I learned something, and this was so valuable for me. So I really appreciate that. And look at the time. It just keeps on flying when you're having fun. So thank you so much, you all, for being here, for contributing. I hope I will see you again in one of these. We have one of these every week. You will see myself, you will see Coach Jeremy, you will see some other superstars from the community. So keep coming, keep asking.
Thank you.
Thank you.